Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got some active weather over the next 7 days, plus what looks to be Tropical Storm Alex forming, impacting Florida. So we'll break things down for you over the next week so you can plan ahead and know what to expect. So if you are new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Let's first of all kind of take you back where we've been the last 2 days. This was the overall radar depiction on Tuesday morning, May the 31st, and we can see some storms that formed over portions of Missouri here. That pinwheeled across all the way through out ahead of a cold front, and you can see some little tropical storm instability out here ahead of that system into Florida. But along that cold front, we had some storms developing late Tuesday night over Oklahoma and portions of Kansas ahead of that cold front. And that really took a nosedive further south and kind of ringed itself out with a lot of precipitation over Oklahoma, ringing through Missouri, all the way through into Illinois. And this was along that cold front. But then once we got into your Wednesday time frame in the afternoon, storms refired with another little shortwave that came across, sending some pretty good hailstones out there in far west Texas. Some of those pictures were just coated out there in far west Texas with a lot of hail with that system. And then we had like the little mesoscale convective complex forming out here in West Texas off the northwest flow, and this really congealed into this mesoscale convective system over into Oklahoma, back in through Texas, getting into the DFW area. You can see along that boundary further to the north into the Ohio Valley, a lot of these areas were packing a lot of lightning with these storms, as well as these continue to traverse across and extended all the way into portions of Jersey here. But that storm complex just kind of really rained a lot in the overnight hours, really had a lot of people waking up with their, in the middle of the night with 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with a lot of thunder and lightning outside their window, with that mesoscale convective complex continue to pinwheel across into Oklahoma and Texas. And that's where we are this morning. But man, those storms are really, they had a lot of lightning with those storms the last 2 days. You can see where the most intense lightning strikes were essentially in Kansas and Oklahoma, as much as in the Texas Panhandle. And we also had some big hail producers back here into portions of far west Texas. And then you have this kind of sea breeze action ahead of this tropical disturbance that's pinwheeling across. The hurricane hunters are actually going to be flying under the storm this afternoon, so they'll see what we find and see if we do in fact have Tropical Storm Alex on our hands. But before today, so let's take a look at the overall update from the Storm Prediction Center. They have highlighted, because this cold front is continuing to be on the move, just kind of a marginal risk. These storms have produced a lot of gusty winds, and that's what you're going to be seeing into portions of Louisiana, back into Mississippi and Alabama, getting into Georgia today. But they could have a little bit more instability, once you get into portions of DC, back into Delaware, southern Jersey areas. Those areas could be seeing some, pocket change hail, and some of those could be on the severe side and qualifying for that. So some of those 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts as we get into the heat of the afternoon. But we also have a little bit of instability back into New Mexico as well. So that is actually going to be some welcoming rains that could develop into the afternoon hours. And by the time we get into tomorrow, for your Friday, that cold front will be continuing to be on the move. All eyes will be on Alex and what it's going to be doing to the state of Florida, as this cold front basically kind of washes itself out. It just more or less kind of fades out. But we have a series of disturbances that's coming off this northwest flow, which is pretty prevalent in June. This is typically what you see. Storms kind of blow up off east of the Rocky Mountains and traverse across into possibly the Texas Panhandle. And if they hold together, they pinwheel across into Oklahoma and to portions farther into, Wichita Falls, getting into the Dallas area. But some of these storms could be on the stronger side. But yeah, more importantly, some much needed rain out here into portions of New Mexico. So let's kind of break this thing down for you and take a look at the now current radar depiction this morning for your Thursday morning around 8 a.m. So there's that convective complex still raining a lot. I mean, some of these areas had 2, 3, 4 inches of rain in portions of Oklahoma to far north Texas. Yesterday, I think the Dallas-Fort Worth area had broke their daily record with 2.15 inches at DFW Airport. So we had some pretty good tropical downpours, and that just kind of just overall just torrential downpours, basically over the portions of the Metroplex here. But now that system is pinwheeling across, getting into Arkansas this morning, as that system, kind of that ball of convection, is really circling, getting into portions of Little Rock here, heading into more into Arkansas. Out ahead of this system, there's that little boundary into portions of the Ohio Valley, getting into Pennsylvania with some rain showers, all the way into portions of Connecticut and Massachusetts. And as this pinwheels across, we just kind of have these sporadic showers along that cold front. That's why they do have that marginal risk in play. But you can see we have another disturbance, right? That's why they have that marginal risk in New Mexico of some of those storms could be bringing some stronger wind gust in that area. But as this continues to move across into the, again, kind of the overnight hours, and this is typically what you see in this time of year, as these storms really try to get their act together into the overnight hours. And it's the same thing, another complex by 5 o'clock in the morning, setting up shop into portions of the Texas Panhandle, pinwheeling across, going over into Texas, and they really try to kind of hold together. They're going to have to rely on more of an outflow boundary to really hold together, but some of them looks like they will, as they pinwheel through Dallas, pinwheel through all the way into central Texas, but all the way down to the south here, right? That's the development of what could be Tropical Storm Alex starting to make impact on Florida, into central Florida, especially southern Florida. A lot of these systems are what they call east side loaded, so I'm not really expecting a big event with this system, but hey, it could be forming into kind of a minimal tropical storm by the time we get into Friday. But that is going to be a very heavy rain producer, regardless of if it develops or not. Pinwheeling across Florida, central Florida, into South Florida with multiple inches of rain. As we have yet another disturbance that's going to be coming across off that northwest flow in the middle of the country, that could be sitting another boundary, setting up over portions of Oklahoma and Texas again by the time we get into Saturday morning. So beyond that, heading into Saturday, there's that disturbance into Saturday. So that's why the Storm Prediction Center has kind of just a marginal risk for some of these storms, again, beyond the gustier wind varieties. So once, if it does creep up to about a 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and that's why they do have that marginal risk on just precautionary measures. Just some of those could be turning severe. But let's take a look at the overall temperatures, and this is the overall setup for the next 4 days. You can kind of see where the cold front will be, right? So right now this morning, it's essentially really kind of stalled across Oklahoma and North Texas there. But what's really prevalent as you get into the afternoon hours, it sinks into central Texas. You can definitely see where the boundary is. Widespread 90s down further to the south, and that cooler air filters in. But there's the predominant northwest flow, right? So you can see the cooler air filtering all the way. And then that's why we have those kind of series of storm developments traveling along these northwest winds aloft in the upper atmosphere. That sets up storm action on east of the mountain regions, and they just kind of blow up into the overnight hours and traverse across down this northwest flow. And that's what we're going to be seeing really over the next couple of days, as this cold front kind of washes itself out by the time we get into Friday. And you can definitely see that there. Then all eyes will be on what's to come with Alex, as those cooler conditions filter in. But that doesn't last long, right? Because we basically have the ridge. You can actually see the ridge starting to build back up again by the time we get into the weekend time frame for much of the south and much of the southern plains here, as the jet stream starts to lift further to the north, and you get what they call zonal flow trying to take over, as the jet stream lifts well to the north, and you got much warmer conditions filtering in further south with widespread 90s, and we could be even creeping up to, say, 100 degrees by the time we get into Sunday afternoon in portions of West Texas again. But let's take a look at the tropics, right? So let's take a look at what could be Alex. Like I mentioned, the Hurricane Center we'll be out there investigating today. This is basically the start of hurricane season. This could basically, it's the first of many storms that looks to develop all the way through now until the end of November. So we're just kind of getting going. And typically the first named storm of the season is not really that big of a storm. It's more of a heavy rain producer. And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing over the coming days. So as we take you through the surface map, you can see about 1,002, 1,003 millibar low pressure. That is basically just on the narrowing edge of a minimal tropical storm that could develop. But we see these deepening reds and oranges pinwheeling across into portions of central Florida, getting into South Florida, into Key West, heading into portions of the Caymans there. But this pinwheels across into Friday, going into Saturday time frame, and then it reemerges out here off the southeast coast, and then pinwheels across, and it could be indications that it could be developing into a stronger tropical storm or possibly even a minimal hurricane by the time we get into Monday into Tuesday time frame. But either way, it's not going to be having any impact whatsoever off the East Coast, as it's going to remain well offshore. We have a lot of higher sea surface temperatures out here, and I think that's what's actually going to help this actually develop this and kind of intensify it as it gets off the state of Florida. So I'm only looking for like just a minimal tropical storm to impact Florida with basically a heavy rain producer, but this will pinwheel across off to the southeast and really kind of move out to sea by the time we get into your Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. So let's take a look at the overall wind swath, and you can see the graph at the bottom corner of the screen. A lot of those green shaded areas, that is essentially 38, 40, 42, 45 mile per hour winds. So again, it's just kind of right on the cusp of if it develops or not. And then once it moves off the state of Florida, that's when I think it will start to get its act together, taking advantage of some of that warmer waters. You have a little bit less shear out here. It's a lot of shear out here into the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, there are, indications there's 77 miles an hour. So, hey, it could peak up and kind of max out around minimal hurricane strength by the time we get into your, Tuesday, Wednesday, possibly time frame. So now let's take a look beyond that, because once we get into Sunday, so we'll be watching this system out here, obviously into the southeast. There's the action down here off the southeast coast. What will be Alex, right, remaining well offshore as this moves away, right? But I want you to turn your attention further to the north, right? So we've got the zonal flow kind of taking shape as the jet stream lifts further to the north. We've got these disturbances way up here in Canada that will pinwheel across over portions of the Ohio Valley into the mid-Atlantic states and getting into the Northeast by the time we get into, say, your Monday time frame with some of those cooler air instabilities, but some of those stronger storms impacting those areas. But further to the south, you can definitely see, we'll just stop it right here around Tuesday, right? It's pretty much a zonal flow. So you can actually see the demarcation line all the way up into Idaho, getting into South Dakota, all the way through Iowa into Minnesota. That's where the kind of the cutoff, where the cooler conditions and some of the more unsettled conditions. But further south, we've got a lot of clearing and a lot of heat we're going to have to be dealing with as the ridge will start to dominate by early next week. But all the instability is further to the north, and by the time we get into your Wednesday time frame, some of those could be on the stronger, severe side. So we'll definitely have to watch out how this all this kind of evolves and come together. But right now, the setup is over portions of South Dakota, Minnesota, getting into Iowa areas, Wisconsin potentially, as this vorticity will pinwheel across the Ohio Valley and head off into portions of the Northeast. At the same time, it finally brings this little shortwave down here into portions of Oklahoma and Texas again, and we could be even talking about another cold front that's moving down in this neck of the woods, but that won't be until Friday into Saturday of next week. So that's a pretty long ways off. That's by June 10th time frame. So let's take a look at the overall kind of 500 millibar height index. And we can, start it from Sunday and kind of show you where that these systems are going to be kind of taking shop. So there's that setup over Alex, pinwheeling across safely off the southeast coast. You can see the ridge really building in. That's depicted on these kind of yellow and these orange shaded areas, right? So that's plenty of heat building into the south as we got the zonal flow, right? Well, to the north, we got a little bit more unsettled weather, a little bit more instability weather, cooler conditions up here as this will pinwheel across and really kind of take shape. You can definitely see the zonal flow by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, right? It's pretty much locked and loaded further to the south. All the heat will build in west, coming into south, central, the southern plains, getting into portions of the southeast where we get a little bit more unsettled weather, well to the north up in Minnesota. And as this will pinwheel across, that's where the action is. And yes, by the time we get into Wednesday, you can see this little deepening trough will try to get its act together over portions of Wisconsin into Michigan. So we'll have to watch all this of how this evolves. Some of these storms could be really kind of packing a punch by then with all the heat building down to the south. But as we get into Friday, right, there's Friday, and then we take you to Saturday. Look at it, look at the breakdown, because we have another breakdown of the ridge possibly penetrating another little cool front, entering portions of Oklahoma again, getting back into Texas with some a little bit more cooler conditions by then. But again, that's a whole nother week away. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.